The city of Zarithia shone under twin suns, its towers stretching high into the violet sky. Airships moved between the spires and glowing paths of energy lit the streets below. This was a world of order, of power, and of tradition. Every being here knew its place. But today, whispers filled the grand halls of the palace, for a wedding unlike any other was about to take place. Queen Sarilith stood on the balcony of the palace, her golden eyes scanning the city below. She was tall and graceful, with smooth silver skin that shimmered in sunlight. Her mind was sharp, and her people admired her for her wisdom. Yet in this moment she felt a strange unease. She was about to marry a human. Humans were known to the galaxy as clever, resilient, and unpredictable, but they were also simple in ways aliens could not always understand. To the Council of Zarithia, humans were almost fragile. Sarilith's marriage to Ethan, the human ambassador, had been a decision of necessity, not desire. Her advisors had urged her to form an alliance, and in the politics of the stars, alliances often came with unusual choices. Ethan arrived at the palace quietly. Unlike the regal and commanding aliens around him, he seemed ordinary. His brown hair fell slightly over his forehead, and his deep eyes watched everything with calm curiosity. He wore a simple ceremonial suit, well-fitted but lacking the decorations and energy symbols common among Zarithian nobles. To many watching, he looked like a human who had wandered into a world far beyond him. Sarilith walked down the grand staircase to greet him. Around them, the council and court nobles whispered. "The queen has chosen a human," one murmured. "She is foolish," another said. But Sarilith ignored them. She had made her decision. Ethan bowed slightly. "Your Highness," he said softly, his voice steady and even. It carried a quiet confidence, but nothing flashy. Sarilith studied him carefully. He looked calm, but she could sense a quiet strength in him, something not obvious at first glance. The ceremony began in the great hall. Crystals floated in the air, casting rainbow light on the polished floors. Sarilith's crown glimmered, and her ceremonial robes flowed around her like liquid silver. Ethan stood beside her, unassuming, almost humble. The council watched with expectation, and some with doubt. When the final words were spoken and the vows exchanged, there was a moment of silence. Then applause erupted. Sarilith smiled politely, though her mind wandered. She could not shake the feeling that there was more to this human than met the eye. The celebration that followed was magnificent. Music filled the air, and alien delicacies were served on floating platters. Aliens of every shape and size mingled in the grand hall. Yet Sarilith could not focus on the festivities. Her thoughts kept returning to Ethan. He watched the guests with a calm, quiet attention, noting everything but never overreacting. Then it happened. A sudden alarm rang through the palace. Red lights flashed, and the air filled with the hum of defensive shields activating. The crowd panicked, some running for cover. The council members rushed to their posts. A rival faction, long opposed to Sarilith's reign, had chosen this moment to strike. Sarilith felt a cold fear grip her. Her palace, her home, was under attack. And yet when she looked at Ethan, he did not panic. His eyes were sharp now, scanning the approaching danger with precise focus. Before anyone else could react, Ethan stepped forward. His movements were swift, almost too fast for her eyes to follow. He intercepted an alien guard who had rushed past, disarming him with ease. Another attacker tried to approach the queen, and Ethan was there in an instant, moving with a grace and strength that no ordinary human or alien would have. The crowd gasped. The council looked on in disbelief. How could a human move like that? Sarilith herself felt her heart leap, not with fear but with amazement. She had thought Ethan ordinary, but this was something extraordinary. In the chaos, Ethan moved calmly, deflecting attacks, guiding frightened guests to safety, and securing entrances. It was as if he had trained for this moment all his life, though he had never mentioned any combat skills. Sarilith felt a new respect growing inside her. Perhaps she had underestimated him. Once the attackers were driven off by the palace defenses, the hall quieted. The guests whispered among themselves, eyes wide with wonder. Sarilith approached Ethan, her expression unreadable. "You are not as ordinary as I thought," she said quietly. Ethan gave a small smile, not boastful but confident. "I try to be prepared," he said simply. For the first time, Sarilith felt a strange sense of relief. The human beside her, the one she had almost dismissed, had just protected her and her people without hesitation. And he had done it with calm and precision, not recklessness. The rest of the evening passed in a tense celebration. The council debated the meaning of Ethan's skills, some seeing them as a threat, others as an advantage. Sarilith stayed close to him, observing quietly. She realized that she had married someone far more capable than anyone had realized. As night fell, Sarilith walked through the palace gardens, Ethan at her side. The twin moons of Zarithia reflected off the crystalline pools, casting shimmering light across the paths. "You handled today, remarkably," Sarilith said. Ethan shrugged, though his eyes were alert. "I did what I could. I only wanted everyone to be safe." Sarilith studied him. There was honesty in his words, and yet a depth she could not fully understand. He did not boast of his strength nor seek praise. He simply acted when it was needed. The queen felt a mixture of curiosity and caution. This human was different, far different from what she had imagined. He was calm in danger, quick in thought, and strong beyond expectation. And yet, he carried none of the arrogance some aliens possessed. Later, alone in her chamber, Sarilith reflected on the day's events. She had made a choice based on politics, not emotion, but perhaps there was more to this human than she had thought. His skills, his calm mind, and his quiet strength suggested that there was a hidden depth to humanity that Zarithia had never truly understood. Outside, the city of Zarithia slept under the twin moons, unaware that the events of the day had begun to change their world. Sarilith knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she also knew one thing clearly. She had married a human, and he was no ordinary man. Ethan stood by the window, looking out at the city. He had chosen to keep much of his past hidden for the sake of diplomacy and peace, but he also understood that the galaxy was full of threats, and sometimes only those prepared could protect others. He did not yet reveal his full strength. That day had only shown a glimpse, and Sarilith, the queen of Zarithia, could not have guessed just how extraordinary the human beside her truly was. The night passed, quiet but full of anticipation. Tomorrow the council would meet again. Tomorrow the galaxy would continue its politics and schemes. But somewhere deep in the palace, a bond began to form, a bond between a queen and a human built not just on alliance, but on the first seeds of respect and wonder. For Sarilith, the realization was clear. She had married someone she did not fully understand. And for Ethan, the challenge was just beginning. The galaxy would test them both, and soon, his true strength would need to be revealed in ways none could expect. And so, under the twin moons of Zarithia, the story began, a story of courage, intelligence, and the quiet power of a human who appeared ordinary, but was anything but. The morning sun rose over Zarithia, casting a warm glow across the palace towers. The air was crisp and the city hummed with activity. Yet within the palace, an unusual tension lingered. Though the wedding had passed, whispers and rumors did not. Many in the council were still unsure about Ethan, the human who had suddenly shown skill and courage during the attack. Queen Sarilith walked through the corridors with a thoughtful expression. Her silver robes flowed behind her as she moved, and her golden eyes seemed to see everything. Ethan followed closely, calm and composed, as if he belonged here. But Sarilith could feel that he was not ordinary. The way he had acted yesterday, so precise, so quick, stayed in her mind. In the council chamber, advisors spoke quietly among themselves. "The human is not what he seems," one elder said. "He moved with precision beyond any human capability we have observed." Another shook his head. "It is unsettling." "How much does he hide?" Sarilith listened but said nothing. She knew that underestimating Ethan could be a mistake. She had already seen hints that humans could be far more capable than most aliens imagined, and she intended to understand him better. After the council meeting, Sarilith and Ethan walked through the palace gardens. The twin moons still glimmered faintly in the early morning sky, reflecting off the crystalline fountains. Sarilith spoke first. "You moved with ease yesterday, more than I expected," she said. Ethan smiled slightly. "I only acted to protect you and the guests. That is my duty." Sarilith studied him carefully. "Your duty, or your skill?" Ethan paused. "Both," he replied simply. "I am trained to handle dangerous situations. That training helps me think clearly, even when others panic." Sarilith's curiosity deepened. She had thought humans were clever, yes, but their physical abilities were often considered limited compared to aliens like her own kind. Yet Ethan moved in ways that suggested strength, speed, and awareness far beyond normal. Later, as they walked through the palace halls, a small incident occurred that confirmed her growing suspicion. A minor mechanical failure caused a hovering crystal display to wobble dangerously above the banquet hall. Several palace attendants rushed forward, unsure how to fix it. Without hesitation, Ethan stepped forward. With careful precision, he adjusted the energy flow, stabilizing the crystal with movements that seemed almost instinctive. The attendants watched in awe, whispering among themselves. Saralith's eyes widened. "You knew exactly what to do," she said softly. Ethan shrugged. "It's part of understanding systems. I analyze quickly, see problems, and act. It's not difficult if you remain calm." The Queen nodded slowly. She realized that his abilities were not only physical but also mental. He could assess a situation, predict outcomes, and act in ways that most beings could not. Days passed, and Saralith observed more. Ethan showed an uncanny awareness in every part of palace life. During training exercises with elite guards, he anticipated movements before they occurred. During strategy meetings, he suggested solutions that were elegant and simple, yet effective. Even in conversation, he noticed small details that others overlooked. The council began to grow uneasy. Some praised him, recognizing his intelligence. Others feared him, wondering what secrets he held. Saralith herself felt a mixture of admiration and caution. She had married a human, thinking him ordinary, and now she saw that he was far from it. One evening, as the palace prepared for a ceremonial feast, the alarms rang again. Not a full attack this time, but a warning. Scouts had detected movement from the rival faction on the outskirts of the city. They were testing Zarithia's defenses. Saralith moved quickly to the command center, and Ethan was at her side. The room was filled with holographic displays showing enemy movements. Aliens worked at consoles, their expressions tense. Ethan leaned forward, studying the maps. "They are probing for weaknesses," he said. "But they will make a mistake if they underestimate us." Saralith watched him closely. "And what is your plan?" Ethan's eyes were calm yet sharp. "We need to anticipate their path and control the choke points. Use both energy shields and tactical placements. They expect the palace defenses to follow standard protocol. We won't. We will act differently." The Queen nodded. "You truly see what others cannot." Ethan smiled faintly. "I am trained to notice patterns and exploit them. It's what humans do when faced with danger. We adapt." As the rival scouts approached, Ethan took command of a small defensive squad. The soldiers, skeptical at first, followed his instructions. They moved swiftly, taking positions that seemed unusual but effective. When the enemy reached the outer gates, they found the defenses stronger and more organized than they had anticipated. From her balcony, Saralith watched as Ethan directed the defense. His gestures were precise, his timing perfect. The aliens under his command began to trust him, even those who had doubted him before. By the time the scouts were repelled, the palace was safe. The council and palace staff were impressed. Whispers of Ethan's abilities grew louder. Even Saralith had to admit to herself that she had never seen anyone like him before. Later, in private, she approached him. "You are extraordinary," she said, her voice low. Ethan shook his head slightly. "I am only doing what I must. Protecting you, the palace, the people. That is enough." Saralith studied him, her mind racing. "Enough? You have a skill that could change the course of battles, the outcome of wars. Do you realize what that means?" Ethan's expression did not change. "I know. But skill without purpose is wasted. I use it to protect, not to conquer." The Queen felt a wave of respect. Here was a being who could surpass many in strength, intelligence, and strategy, but who did not seek power for himself. His abilities were disciplined, restrained, and purposeful. Over the next few days, Saralith began observing him in smaller, more personal ways. Ethan could lift objects with surprising ease, move quickly across difficult terrain, and perform tasks that seemed impossible for a human. Yet he never flaunted his strength. It was always quiet, controlled, efficient. She realized that humans, in their simplicity, often hid immense potential. Their adaptability, resilience, and determination could surprise even the most advanced alien civilizations. And here was a human who embodied all of those qualities, without arrogance, without pride, simply using them when necessary. The council noticed her growing fascination. "Your Highness," one advisor said cautiously, "he is unlike any human we have seen. We must consider carefully what this means for the kingdom." Saralith waved her hand dismissively. I see it. But this is no time for fear. We must observe, learn, and trust when necessary. He has proven his value already. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the palace gardens, Sarilith found herself walking alongside Ethan again. The air was calm, the city quiet below. You seem different from other humans I have met, she said. Ethan looked thoughtful. Humans are different from each other and from other species. We adapt, we survive. And some of us train to be ready for challenges. That is all I have done. Sarilith nodded slowly. She understood. Perhaps she had underestimated not just him, but the human race itself. She began to see that strength was not always obvious, and power was not always visible. That night, as the palace lights dimmed and the city of Zarithia settled, Sarilith lay awake, thinking about the human she had married. He appeared ordinary, even simple to many, but she now knew otherwise. He had skill, intelligence, and strength far beyond expectations, and she could not predict where his true abilities might lead. Ethan, meanwhile, stood by the window in his room. He thought about the rival faction, the palace, and the queen. He had hidden much of his skill until now, showing only what was necessary. But he knew that greater challenges were coming. And when those challenges arrived, he would need to reveal more of his strength, both to protect the queen and to protect the people who had begun to trust him. In the quiet of the palace, the seeds of respect, trust, and curiosity were growing. Sarilith had begun to see the extraordinary potential of humanity, and Ethan had begun to understand the depth of the world he now called home. And far beyond the palace, in the shadows of the rival faction's territory, eyes watched and waited. They had underestimated the human, and soon, they would learn that he was far more than he appeared to be. The story of a queen and her extraordinary human had only just begun. The palace of Zarithia was quiet in the early morning, but tension lingered in the air. Queen Sarilith could not shake her thoughts of Ethan, the human she had married. Each day she discovered more about him, more that did not fit the image she had once held of humans. They were clever, yes, but he, Ethan, was something entirely different. That morning, Sarilith walked to the private training hall of the palace. She found Ethan already there, observing a holographic map of Zarithia's defenses. His calm eyes scanned every point, every weak spot, every possible path of attack. To the untrained eye, he appeared merely interested. But Sarilith knew better. "You are planning again," she said softly. Ethan looked up and smiled faintly. "I want to understand the palace fully. If a threat comes, we must be ready. I only do what I can to help," Sarilith nodded. "I have watched you these past days. You are extraordinary, but I do not understand. How is it that a human, so ordinary at first glance, can do these things?" Ethan hesitated. For a moment, his usual calm expression faltered. Then he said, "There is much about my people and about me that is not known to others." "Perhaps it is time you understood." Sarilith felt a spark of curiosity. She gestured for him to continue. Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes steady and serious. "I come from a human force trained for survival in extreme conditions," he began. "From a young age I was taught to endure, to observe, and to act with precision. Humans may appear fragile compared to your kind, but we adapt, we learn, we survive. And some of us train to be ready for anything." Sarilith listened, captivated. "So your skill, your strength, it is trained?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "But it is more than that. We rely on intelligence, speed, and strategy, not brute force alone. We think quickly, plan quickly, and act without hesitation. It is why I could act yesterday and why I can handle the palace defenses now." The queen studied him. She realized that his calm demeanor was not ordinary humility. It was control, discipline, intelligence. He had hidden much of his true ability, revealing only what was necessary. But she knew it was far greater than she had imagined. "And your physical strength?" she asked. Ethan smiled faintly. "It is part of training. But it is never for show. It is only to protect, to survive, and to act when others cannot. Humans have limits, yes, but we stretch them. We adapt." Sarilith felt a wave of respect. She had married him thinking he was ordinary, a simple human ambassador. But now she understood that he was far from ordinary. He was disciplined, strong, and intelligent in ways that most aliens could not comprehend. Before she could respond, the alarms sounded again. This time the warning was not minor. Sensors had detected a fleet approaching the planet. The rival faction that had tried to attack the palace during the wedding was preparing a full strike. Sarilith's golden eyes narrowed. "They are coming for the palace," she said. Ethan nodded. "And we will be ready. But we must act quickly." In the command center, holographic displays showed the enemy fleet advancing. Sarilith's advisors were tense, some visibly shaken. Yet Ethan moved calmly, analyzing every ship, every trajectory, every possible strategy. He instructed the palace defenses with precision, placing energy shields and defense units in positions that would maximize their strength. Some of the council members whispered in disbelief. "He is guiding our defenses better than our generals," one said. Sarilith did not answer. She watched Ethan as he moved among the soldiers, giving instructions that were clear, concise, and impossible to argue with. The elite guards, who had doubted him before, now followed his lead without question. Even the palace war machines seemed to respond more efficiently under his direction. As the enemy fleet approached, Ethan turned to Sarilith. "The flagship is heavily armed. If we do not act strategically, it could destroy the palace." Sarilith nodded. "What do you suggest?" Ethan's eyes were steady. "We draw them into a trap. Use their expectations against them. We appear weaker than we are. They will underestimate us. Then we strike with precision." The Queen realized that his strategy was not only clever but also daring. It relied on understanding the enemy's mind, predicting their moves, and acting faster than they could react. Only someone with extraordinary skill and intelligence could plan this in such detail. When the enemy fleet arrived, Ethan's plan went into action. The palace defenses moved exactly as he had instructed. Shields shifted, energy barriers rose, and hidden turrets activated. The enemy expected chaos, but they found order. They anticipated hesitation, but they met precision. Sarilith fought alongside her elite guards, coordinating with Ethan's commands. She saw him in action again, his movements calm, efficient, and powerful. He could anticipate every attack, direct soldiers with perfect timing, and make split-second decisions that changed the course of battle. The Queen felt a mixture of awe and relief. Ethan was not only protecting the palace, he was showing her the full extent of human capability. Her people had doubted him, but she now knew that humans, though different, could exceed even the most advanced aliens in skill, intelligence, and adaptability. After the battle, the enemy fleet retreated. Zarithia was safe, but Sarilith could see the respect and fear in the eyes of her council. They had underestimated a human, and they had been proven wrong. Later, in private, Sarilith approached Ethan again. "I understand now," she said. "You are not ordinary. You are extraordinary, and I see that humans, in their simplicity, can possess strength beyond what we imagined." Ethan smiled faintly. "I am only one human. There are many like me, trained to survive, to adapt, and to protect. That is all." The Queen shook her head. "No, you are more than that. You have shown me courage, intelligence, and strength that surpass expectations, and you have done so without arrogance, without pride. You act only when needed." Ethan looked at her quietly. "That is all a person can do. Act when necessary and protect those who cannot protect themselves." Sarilith felt a sense of clarity. She realized that she had been wrong to judge humans by appearances alone. They were resilient, clever, and capable of greatness in ways that even the most advanced aliens could not predict. Over the next few days, Ethan continued to assist with the palace defenses and the city's readiness. Sarilith watched him closely, learning from his actions. He moved among the soldiers, trained with precision, and planned strategies that even experienced generals had overlooked. The Queen began to understand that strength was not only physical. Intelligence, adaptability, calm decision-making, and the ability to act under pressure were equally important. And Ethan possessed all of these qualities. One evening, as the twin moons of Zarithia reflected on the palace pools, Sarilith and Ethan walked together in the gardens. The city below was calm, but the Queen could sense that the galaxy itself was watching, waiting for the next move. "You have changed my view of humans," she said quietly. "I believed them to be clever, yes, but limited. You have shown me that we underestimated your species." Ethan nodded. "Humans are adaptable. We survive, and some of us train to be ready for any challenge." "That is all I have done," Sarilith smiled. "You have done much more. You have protected this palace, and you have shown me the true potential of humanity." I will not forget this. Ethan looked at her with calm eyes. I do not expect praise. I only act to protect. The Queen felt a mixture of admiration and respect. She realized that her marriage to Ethan was not just political. She had found someone who could not only stand beside her, but also exceed expectations in ways she had never imagined. As night fell, the palace quieted. Sarilith lay awake, thinking about the human beside her. He had revealed a part of his strength, and she could see that there was still more. The galaxy would continue to challenge them, and she knew that when the time came, Ethan would reveal even more of his extraordinary abilities. For now, she could only watch and learn, knowing that she had married someone far beyond ordinary, and in the quiet of the palace, the bond between a queen and her human deepened, built on trust, respect, and the first seeds of understanding the true strength of humanity. Outside the palace, shadows moved as the rival faction observed from afar. They had underestimated Ethan before, and they would underestimate him again at their peril. But soon, they would learn the full extent of his strength, and the galaxy itself would be forced to recognize that humans were not to be overlooked. The story of a queen and her extraordinary human had only just begun. And for Sarilith, the realization was clear. She had married someone far greater than she had ever imagined. The skies above Zarithia were filled with tension. The twin suns shone dimly through thin clouds, but even their light could not ease the anxiety that gripped the city. Scouts had reported a massive fleet approaching from the rival faction, far larger and better armed than any threat the palace had faced before. The time for tests and small skirmishes was over. Queen Sarilith stood on the balcony of the command center, her silver robes glinting in the light of the twin suns. Beside her, Ethan studied the tactical maps with calm intensity. Holographic displays showed the enemy ships advancing in perfect formation, each one bristling with weapons and energy shields. They are organized, Sarilith said. But I trust you. What is our plan? Ethan turned to her, his face calm but serious. We cannot meet them head-on. Their strength is too great. We need to outthink them, not overpower them. Our goal is to control their movements and force them into positions we can manage. Sarilith nodded. And how do we do that? Ethan gestured to the map. We will divide our forces. Some units will appear weak, even vulnerable, to lure them in. Meanwhile, our hidden defenses will be ready. When they take the bait, we strike with precision. The Queen watched him with a mixture of awe and concern. The plan was daring, almost risky. But she trusted Ethan. He had already shown that he could anticipate danger, act swiftly, and think far beyond anyone else in the palace. As the enemy fleet approached, the palace defenses activated. Energy shields glowed along the city walls, and automated turrets tracked the ships in perfect synchronization. Soldiers manned their stations, their movement steady but anxious. Even the elite guards looked to Ethan for guidance, following his every instruction. Remember, Ethan said, his voice calm but firm. We move as one. Follow my signals. Do not act out of fear. Precision wins, not panic. The enemy fleet took the bait. A smaller group of ships advanced toward the city gates, expecting an easy strike. But Ethan had anticipated this. The supposed weak points were traps. Energy barriers shifted at the right moment, and hidden turrets fired with deadly accuracy. The enemy ships were caught off guard, their formations breaking as panic spread through their ranks. Sarilith watched the battle unfold with her heart pounding. She had never seen strategy executed so perfectly. Ethan moved among the soldiers, correcting positions, redirecting fire, and giving clear instructions that everyone could follow. Even the alien commanders, initially skeptical, had to admit his brilliance. Your tactics, one commander whispered, watching the enemy falter. They are unlike anything we have seen. Ethan's eyes remained on the holographic map. They rely on assumptions, he said quietly. They think we will respond predictably, but humans do not act like that. We adapt. Sarilith felt a surge of pride and respect. Here was a human, a species she had once thought fragile and ordinary, leading an army of aliens with precision and skill. His calm demeanor in the face of danger inspired everyone around him, turning fear into focus. As the battle continued, the enemy fleet began to regroup, preparing to strike the palace directly. Their flagship, larger and more powerful than the rest, moved forward, weapons charged and ready to destroy the city. Ethan's plan reached its critical moment. The flagship is our target, he said to Sarilith. We cannot let it reach the palace. We must force it into a position where its power becomes a weakness. He directed a coordinated strike, using smaller energy pulses to steer the enemy flagship into a narrow canyon near the city outskirts. Once trapped, the flagship's own weapons risked damaging itself if fired recklessly. The enemy was clever, but they had not anticipated human ingenuity. The Queen followed every move, her heart racing. She saw Ethan's strategy unfold perfectly. His strength was not only physical, though he could move with incredible speed and precision, but mental. He could anticipate moves, plan several steps ahead, and adapt instantly to changes. The flagship fired its main weapon, expecting to break through the defenses. But Ethan had predicted this. Shields redirected the energy, and the blast struck the canyon walls instead, damaging the enemy ship. The smaller ships panicked, their formation collapsing completely. Sarilith could not believe her eyes. "It is incredible," she whispered. Ethan remained calm. "It is about thinking ahead, not strength alone," he said. "Strength without strategy is useless." He moved through the battlefield, giving orders to every unit. Soldiers followed him without hesitation, inspired by his presence. Aliens who had once doubted him now saw his brilliance. Even the most elite commanders recognized that his leadership was unmatched. The enemy fleet tried to retreat, but Ethan had anticipated that as well. Using a series of clever maneuvers, he cut off their escape routes, forcing them into tight spaces where their numbers and power became disadvantages. One by one, their ships were disabled, captured, or destroyed. The city below erupted in cheers as the last enemy ship fell. Sarilith felt a mixture of relief and amazement. The palace, the city, and the people of Zarithia had been saved, not by brute force alone, but by the extraordinary mind and skill of a human. Later, in the command center, Sarilith approached Ethan. He was calm, reviewing the battlefield and checking for any remaining threats. "You have changed everything," she said softly. "You have saved Zarithia and shown us the true power of your kind." Ethan shook his head slightly. "I only did what was necessary. Humans are capable, yes, but we do not act for glory. We act to protect," the Queen smiled. "Even so, your strength and intelligence have earned respect, and more than that, they have inspired my people. You have shown them that humans are more than they imagined." Ethan's expression remained calm. "I am glad it helped. That is enough for me." Sarilith studied him quietly. She realized that she had underestimated humans and perhaps the galaxy itself. They were resilient, clever, and capable of extraordinary feats when challenged. And this human beside her embodied all those qualities. The council and soldiers now looked at Ethan with new eyes. Some whispered in awe, others in fear, but all recognized that he had accomplished something beyond expectation. He had not only protected the palace, but had done so with intelligence, calmness, and precision. That evening, as the city recovered and repairs began, Sarilith and Ethan walked through the palace gardens. The twin moons cast soft light over the fountains, and the air was filled with a sense of calm after the storm. "You were remarkable today," Sarilith said quietly. Ethan smiled faintly. "I did what I could. The palace and your people are safe. That is all that matters." Sarilith nodded, but her thoughts lingered on the possibilities. There was still more to him, she knew. His full potential had not yet been revealed. The enemy had been powerful, but they were only the beginning. She realized that with him at her side, they could face any threat, no matter how large or unexpected. "I see now," she said softly. "I have married not just a human, but someone extraordinary. Someone who surpasses even the most advanced of our kind in skill and intelligence." Ethan shook his head again, humble yet confident. "I am only one human. Others may be like me, but each of us acts in our own way. Strength is not just physical, it is also in thought, planning, and action." Sarilith looked at him, feeling a deep respect. She had begun to understand the true nature of humanity, not just the species, but this man beside her. Calm, intelligent, capable, and disciplined. He had revealed enough to save the palace, but she could sense there was even more. As the palace lights dimmed and the city settled into quiet, Sarilith lay awake, thinking about what she had seen. Ethan had shown his strength, his mind, and his leadership. But the night whispered that there was more to come. More challenges, more tests, and perhaps more revelations of the human she had married. Outside, far beyond the city, the rival faction regrouped. They had underestimated him once. They would soon learn that they could not hope to defeat a human like Ethan, not with skill, intelligence, and courage that surpassed all expectation. And so, under the twin moons of Zarithia, the queen and her extraordinary human stood ready. The battle had been won, but the war of the galaxy had only just begun. And when it came, Ethan's true strength would be revealed in ways that none could have imagined. The story of a queen and her human had grown. Respect, trust, and awe were now part of their bond. And the galaxy was about to witness the full power of humanity. The morning over Zarithia was tense and bright, the twin suns reflecting off the palace walls like molten metal. The city had recovered from the earlier attack, but the rival faction had not given up. Their flagship had retreated only temporarily. Intelligence reports indicated it was returning, larger and more heavily armed than before. Queen Sarilith stood on the balcony of the command center, her golden eyes scanning the horizon. Beside her, Ethan observed the approaching fleet with his usual calm intensity. Despite the looming threat, he showed no fear, no hesitation, only focus. "They are coming again," Sarilith said. Ethan nodded. "This time they expect retaliation. They will attempt to overwhelm us with sheer numbers and firepower. But we are ready. We will not be caught off guard." The queen watched him carefully. Each day she had seen his skill, intelligence, and strength, but today felt different. There was a quiet certainty in him that suggested he was prepared for anything. She realized that the full extent of his abilities had yet to be revealed. As the enemy fleet advanced, Ethan directed the palace defenses with precision. Holographic maps displayed ship positions, energy shields, and troop movements. Soldiers, guards, and commanders followed his instructions without question. The plan was complex, relying on timing, coordination, and anticipation of enemy behavior. Yet Ethan moved calmly through the chaos, ensuring every detail was executed perfectly. Sarilith observed as smaller ships from their side lured portions of the enemy fleet into narrow canyons and asteroid fields surrounding the city. When the flagship fired, it struck barriers and obstacles strategically placed to reduce its damage and slow its movement. Ethan had thought of everything. "Your strategy. It is flawless," Sarilith whispered, awe in her voice. Ethan shook his head slightly. "Flawless plans require careful thought and attention to detail. But the execution depends on discipline. We act with precision, not emotion." The queen realized she was witnessing something extraordinary. He was not just protecting her or the city. He was displaying the peak of human adaptability and intelligence. The enemy had strength in numbers, weapons, and experience, but they had underestimated the human's ability to think beyond conventional methods. The flagship, frustrated by repeated failures, tried to strike directly at the palace. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He had anticipated this. "Sarilith, stand back," he said calmly. "I will handle this directly." Before she could protest, Ethan moved at a speed that made her gasp. He ran to a command post near the palace edge, bypassing guards and machinery with ease. To the council and soldiers, he seemed to vanish and reappear instantly, directing the energy channels and power grids to maximize defensive output. His presence alone transformed the battlefield. The flagship fired again, but Ethan's adjustments turned its weaponry against itself. Energy shields absorbed and reflected the blasts, while focused countermeasures disabled key systems on the enemy ship. The rival fleet scrambled, unable to adapt as quickly as Ethan. Every move he made was precise, calculated, and devastatingly effective. Sarilith watched, stunned. The human she had married, whom she had thought ordinary, was now controlling the battlefield almost single-handedly. His calm, focused mind allowed him to anticipate the enemy's moves, neutralize their advantages, and exploit weaknesses that no alien general could have foreseen. Suddenly, the flagship attempted a risky maneuver, a full-force ramming attack toward the city's central defense hub. It seemed impossible to stop. Soldiers froze, unsure what to do. The queen felt a pang of fear, but Ethan did not hesitate. He ran across the ground faster than any human or alien could follow. In an instant, he scaled a defensive platform, leaped into the air, and used the energy conduits to redirect the ship's momentum. Sparks flew, machinery groaned, and the flagship's trajectory shifted, narrowly missing the hub. It collided with a canyon wall, causing a massive explosion that rocked the surrounding fleet. The enemy ships faltered, retreating in disarray. The palace and the city were safe, and the rival faction's flagship lay crippled among the rocks. For the first time, many of the Zarithian council members truly understood the human strength, not just his intelligence, not just his speed, but his combination of both in perfect harmony. Saralith approached Ethan, her heart pounding. You saved Zarithia completely, she said, her voice filled with awe. Ethan turned to her, calm and composed. I only acted as I was trained to. Humans can adapt, plan, and act quickly. That is all? The Queen shook her head, smiling. It is more than that. You are extraordinary beyond anything I imagined. You have shown me the true potential of humanity. Resilient, intelligent, disciplined, and strong. Ethan's expression remained modest. I am glad it helped. That is enough. Saralith realized that this human, so calm and unassuming, had revealed only a fraction of his abilities. She wondered what other feats he might accomplish in the future. Later, the council convened to assess the situation. Their discussions, once full of doubt and skepticism about humans, now focused on admiration and strategy. Ethan had not only protected the palace, but had demonstrated that humans could lead, innovate, and succeed in situations even the most advanced alien minds could not predict. Your Highness, one advisor said to Saralith, we must acknowledge that your human is unlike any other being we have encountered. He has saved the city, the palace, and possibly the entire kingdom today. Saralith nodded. Yes, he has, and we are lucky to have him. Ethan, quietly observing the council, remained composed. He did not boast. He did not seek recognition. He acted only when necessary, and with a clarity of mind that few could match. That evening, Saralith and Ethan walked through the palace gardens under the soft light of the twin moons. The fountains sparkled, reflecting a sense of calm after the storm. You have changed everything, Saralith said softly. Not just the palace, not just the council. You have changed how we see humans. You have shown that strength is more than physical. Intelligence, courage, and discipline are just as powerful. Ethan smiled faintly. Humans are adaptable. We survive and act when needed. That is all. Saralith took his hand, feeling a deep connection. No, it is more than that. You have saved lives, inspired people, and shown me that humans are capable of greatness that even we could not imagine. I am proud to call you my husband. Ethan looked at her quietly, understanding the depth of her words. I only do what is necessary. That is all any human or any being can do. The Queen smiled, realizing that she had found not only a protector but also a partner who could stand beside her through any challenge. His strength, his calm intelligence, and his courage were unmatched, and she knew that together they could face any threat the galaxy might bring. Outside, the rival faction was in retreat, their forces scattered and demoralized. They had underestimated a human, and now they would think twice before challenging Zarithia again. The galaxy was beginning to see that humans were not to be overlooked, not to be dismissed as fragile or ordinary. As the night settled, Saralith looked at Ethan and felt a sense of wonder. She had married a man who appeared simple at first, but whose true strength and intelligence had revealed themselves in ways that no one could have predicted. He was a human, yes, but one who embodied all the qualities that made humanity extraordinary. Ethan stood quietly, watching the stars. The battle was over, but the future held many challenges. Yet he was ready. He had protected the Queen, the palace, and the people. And when the time came, he would face whatever came next with the same calm precision and strength that had saved Zarithia today. The story of a queen and her human had reached a turning point. Respect, trust, and awe had grown into something stronger. And for Saralith, the truth was clear. She had married someone far beyond ordinary. The galaxy would remember this day. They would remember that humans were clever, resilient, and strong in ways few could predict. And they would remember the man who had changed their perception forever, a human who revealed his true strength when it mattered most. Under the twin moons, with the palace safe and the city calm, Queen Saralith and Ethan stood together. She had learned the full meaning of strength, and he had shown the quiet power of humanity. Their bond had deepened, and the story of humans in the galaxy would never be the same, and so, the Queen realized with certainty, she had married not an ordinary man, but one whose courage, intelligence, and strength would leave a mark on Zarithia, the galaxy, and the hearts of all who witnessed his deeds. The legend of the extraordinary human had begun.